Allahu Akbar. It is such a joy for me to stand here before you on this blessed spot, which has been particularly sanctified by the footsteps of our beloved Master. I had no plans of visiting the United States at this time. I received a letter from your National Spiritual Assembly inviting me to come here to visit the various summer schools, meet the friends, and end up my visit here with you at Green Acre. The reason why this National Spiritual Assembly invited me to come was that my father, his name was Mirza Ali Akbar Nakhjavani, was among the retinue of Abdu'l-Bahá when he visited the United States, and of course here at Green Acre. As I was walking and I saw that there is a framed picture of Abdu'l-Bahá at Green Acre with three Orientals. The person who is in the center, between these three, is in the center, is my father. Yeah. So you see, I'm here on the credit card of my father. I thought it would be appropriate to start our discussion by quoting for you some of the titles and accolades mentioned by Shoghi Effendi in his writings about the American Baha'i community. I'm sure you are all familiar with these titles and accolades. A community, he wrote, which was the first to awaken to the call of the new day in the Western world. A community which was the first to champion the cause of the oppressed and to generously contribute to the alleviation of the sufferings of the needy and the persecuted among the followers of Baha'u'llah. A community whose members are regarded as the spiritual descendants of the dawn breakers of the heroic age. A community which was chosen to be the chief repository of the immortal tablets of Abdu'l-Bahá's divine plan, and whose members are considered as the chief executors of that mandate, as the champion builders of the divinely conceived administrative order, as the standard bearers of the all-conquering army of the Lord of Hosts, and as the torchbearers of a future divinely inspired world civilization. I tell you, I have never seen any such titles given to any other community. This is especially for you. You will have to find out why. But there is something special about these titles, and I think I must also read that. It is a warning. Maybe you won't like it. But it is from the pen of Shoghi Effendi, that same pen who gave you those titles. Same pen. He says that if the American Baha'i community will not rise to the destiny that has been ordained for it by Baha'u'llah, if through apathy means lack of enthusiasm, if through apathy and neglect its members will not carry out their duties as they should, they will lose their spiritual primacy conferred upon them by the Blessed Beauty. This is a warning. So we shouldn't rest on our laurels and say, well, it's destiny, of course we deserve it, fine, it's very good, we're special, we'll continue to be special for the rest of the dispensation. It's not so. You could lose it through two things that Shoghi Effendi is warning us against: neglect and apathy. And that applies to everyone, not only in this hall. It affects and applies to every single American Baha'i believer. As there are some Persians among you, I'd like to just to say also a few words about the link that Shoghi Effendi draws our attention to between Iran, the cradle of the faith, and the United States, the cradle of the administrative order. In one of his letters, written early during his guardianship, Shoghi Effendi says that our oppressed and downtrodden brethren in Persia will witness the signs of their promised redemption, which, as foretold by Abdu'l-Bahá, must first be made manifest through the efforts of their brethren in that great freedom-loving Republic of the West. He also, in another letter, he points out that there is a tablet revealed by Abdu'l-Bahá while incarcerated within the walls of the prison city of Acre, and addressed to the Baha'is of Khorasan, which is one of the important provinces in Iran, and mentioned by Baha'u'llah himself in the Kitab-i-Aqdas. This is what Abdu'l-Bahá wrote to the Baha'is of Khorasan, and it says, text which has been published and distributed in the days of Abdu'l-Bahá among the friends in Iran. And Shoghi Effendi translated this passage himself from Persian into English. Addressing the Persian believers, he says, ere long will your brethren from Europe and America journey to Persia. There they will promote to an unprecedented degree the interests of art and industry. There they will rear the institutions of true civilization, promote the development of husbandry and trade, and assist in the spread of education. Assuredly, they will come. Assuredly, they will contribute in making of the land of Iran the envy and the admiration of the peoples and nations of the world. I want to address my Persian Baha'i friends, brothers and sisters. When the Europeans and the Americans will go to Iran, my dear Persian friends, are you going to remain here? Are you not going to accompany them, to assist them, to translate for them? I want you to think about this. Abdu'l-Bahá says, assuredly, they will come. Now we come to our subject today. I think the question of the devotional attitude is a very important aspect. I'm not talking about prayer as such, why we should pray and when we should pray and so on. I'm just talking about the devotional attitude, which is the very basis, the beginning of any prayer we want to offer. There is a tablet revealed by Baha'u'llah in which he likens the prayerful attitude, prayer as a general, to a ladder. What do we do with the ladder? When we don't need it, we put it in a storeroom. But when the time comes that we have to go up to the roof, the first thing we do, we go to the storeroom and find the ladder and put it in position. This is stage one. So when I pray, it's not that I just press a button and start the reading immediately. No, I should prepare my soul. I should get my ladder and put it in position before I start climbing. Do we do this? Do I do this? Believe me, without it, it won't work. Look at what Shoghi Effendi has done with the holy places. When you go to the shrine of Baha'u'llah, he has gardens. The same thing with the shrine of the Bab. He has gardens, terraces climbing up to the shrine of the Bab. Even in the Kitab Aqdas, he says, while you are directing your steps to the Mashriq al-Askar, you should be in a prayerful attitude. You have not entered the Mashriq al-Askar. If you notice, all Mashriq al-Askars have gardens. And you direct your steps towards the Mashriq al-Askar. You have not entered yet. And he says, remember God as you are walking through the garden. This is preparation. Remember God and ask for forgiveness of your sins. This is not what Ali is telling you. This is in the Kitab Aqdas. You haven't entered the shrine yet, the Mashriq al-Askar yet. Preparation. Obligatory prayer, have ablutions. Preparation. You don't just take the prayer book and stop up right away. No, prepare your soul. Before you have your obligatory prayer, you have to prepare your soul. That's a major step in prayer, whether it's obligatory or whether it is in other forms. Second thing is, now that you are placed your ladder in position, is to climb up. That's when we read the revealed word. Sentence by sentence by sentence by sentence. Whether it's a prayer by the Bab, by Baha'u'llah, or Abdu'l-Bahá. As careful as I am to make sure that my steps are firm on the ladder, I have to be very careful as I'm reading this prayer. I should absorb the prayer. I should understand each sentence. What does it tell me? It's important. Otherwise, I'll fall. Step by step by step. Now, I reach the top. Means I have finished my prayer. What do? Close the book and go about my business? Why did I go up? I had a purpose. What is the purpose? Just to go there and come down? That's when conversation, our private conversation with God happens. I remember a story that the hand of the cause, William Sears, told us. He said that he gave a talk somewhere in the States about the Baha'i faith. And then he said, any questions? Hand went up. The question was, we hear that God is dead. What do you think? So he said, well, I don't know. When I was having a chat with him this morning, he was fine. What I liked about Mr. Sears' answer was the word chat. Private conversation with God. Intimate conversation with God. That's where it begins. Use your own language. We have to use our own language. Communicate. Private conversation with my Lord. Of course, I have a problem. I offer my problem. Some of us already have found the solution to the problem before we pray. And when we reach that point, please, God, give it to me. There's no conversation. It's one way. It's an order. Give it to me. and give it to me now. This doesn't sound right at all. There is a prayer revealed by Baha'u'llah, and I think I have the page number somewhere here that I would like to share with you. It is in our American prayer book, page 165. It begins with the words, He is the gracious, thy call hath attracted me. That's how it starts. Now, in that prayer, there is a sentence that Baha'u'llah has put in that prayer, right? So that we say it. O God, I know not what profiteth me and what harmeth me. But I had the solution, and I knew that that was good for me. It is the exact opposite of what Baha'u'llah is saying. The exact opposite. An American pilgrim went to see Abdu'l-Bahá. One of her first questions was, whatever I ask God to give me, He does not give me. Why? Abdu'l-Bahā's answer was the short sentence. It is because you insist. That's it. What does insistence mean? Insistence means that I know the answer. Insistence means I know what profits me, and I know what harms me. The exact opposite of what Baha'u'llah is saying. My dear, there is it's not only in this prayer, there is one whole tablet on this subject in Persian to the friends to say, you do not know what is good for you. You do not know what harms you. You do not know what profits you. But we think that we know. Who is speaking? The ego. It's the ego. Saying, oh, well, of course, God is so far, He doesn't know, but you, of course, know. That's wrong. That's not an attitude of prayer. During this time of intimate conversation, I should say, I don't know what is good for me, oh my Lord. I think that such and such may be okay. If it is in conformity with thy will, with thy good pleasure, give it to me. If not, I am perfectly satisfied. Everything what I want to do, I want it to be in harmony with thy good pleasure and thy will. That is proper attitude. You see, answer to prayer could be one of three things. One is, yeah, this thing is good for you, I give it to you. That's correct. Second possibility, this is good for you, but the time has not come. I will give it to you later. There is even a tablet revealed by Baha'u'llah in which he says, when such things happen, later he will give you something which is far better than what you had originally asked him. Two possibilities. Three possibilities. Third possibility is, this is not good for you. I'm not giving it to you. This is poison for you. You are asking for poison. How can I give it to you? But we think of only one possibility. Give it to me, and now. This is the wrong attitude. So, this, I think, is a point that I wanted to stress. When we pray, it's very clear in the writings that we should pray to Baha'u'llah. He is the manifestation of God for today. We have to turn to Baha'u'llah. However, there is a lot of flexibility. And Shoghi Effendi has explained all these flexibilities in his writings. He says, it is entirely in order for us to turn our hearts in prayer to Abdu'l-Bahá. However, when we do so, we should realize that he is not a manifestation of God, although he is the mystery of God. But we pray through him to Baha'u'llah. Out of his kindness, Shoghi Effendi says that you may also turn your hearts to me, provided I'm not a manifestation of God, through me to Baha'u'llah. Apart from all that, we have intercession. In his tribute to the greatest holy leaf, Shoghi Effendi addresses the greatest holy leaf and calls on her to intercede on his behalf in the presence of Baha'u'llah. He says, convey this message to him through the greatest holy leaf. In fact, one can intercede, one can call upon, for example, when I received that letter from the American NSK to come here, I turned to my father and I said, now come on, I'm going to the States because of you. If you don't help me or you find somebody to help me, how can I go? What can I do? I had a little chat with my father, believe me. I'm telling you the truth. I hope he hasn't forgotten. Intercession is an entirely correct method of turning our hearts, provided it is through, not to. To is only Baha'u'llah. I hope this is clear. Now, I would like to share with you a tablet when we ask for prayers for forgiveness of our own shortcomings. You know, we all have weak points. And this is what Shoghi Effendi says. It's one of his letters. We all have weak points. I think this should be written in gold. If you tell me, but Ali, I'm sorry, but I have no weak points. Everything I have are strong points. When I look at others, of course I see many weak points. But I don't have. I'm sorry, I'm not going to agree with you. It's not so. Our beloved guardian says, we all have weak points. We have all shortcomings, failings. Of course we do. When we look at others, we should not look at their weak points. We should look at their strong points. When we look at ourselves, we should look at our weak points and ask for forgiveness, for help to overcome them. We quite often do the opposite. When we look at others, we only see their weak points. We look at ourselves, we only want to look at our strong points. It doesn't work. Now, so there is a tablet revealed by Baha'u'llah. It is in Arabic. When I read it for the first, it's only about 4 or 5 lines. But when I read it for the first time, God is my witness. I wasn't only stunned, I shook within my bones when I read this. All right. See what he says. He says, conceal. The first word is conceal. Conceal and forgive the faults of others, wherever they may be, so that God may forgive your own faults. He makes it conditional. If I don't forgive others, Baha'u'llah tells me, you don't forgive, I will not forgive. I will cry, he's not forgiving. Why? Because I have not forgiven. There's something in my heart that does not allow me to forgive. And what's that thing? Excuse me, it is my self and passion. It is my ego, nothing else. Conceal and forgive the faults of others, wherever they may be, so that God may forgive your own faults through His grace. Oh, I wish the tablet had finished there. It's not finished. Then, there is then. Then wash away such shortcomings from your heart, so that He may wipe off your own and clothe you with His beauteous garment. All right, what is He saying here? Certainly, it's a second step. It's not the same. He's not repeating Himself. 2 steps. One is to forgive. It's the usual saying in English, to forgive and forget. But we say that forgive and forget as if it's just an ordinary thing. The word forget has a lot of meaning. And Shoghi Effendi, in more than one of his letters in English, he uses forgive and forget. But here, Baha'u'llah opens up the forget, explains what forget means. It's not just forget. How can I forget? I cannot forget. It's registered here. How can I forget? Of course, he's asking me to forget the bitterness of the experience. Sometimes somebody has been unkind to us or expressed an unkind word or impolite word. We keep this resentment in our hearts for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. It festers, it poisons the soul. We have not forgiven. We have forgiven just by word. I have to wash away this bitterness entirely. I cannot forget because I have a brain and this has registered. All right. But I should be able to forgive and forget and wash away this bitterness in my heart about this individual. Get it out of my system. Let bygones be bygones forever. That's important. If I don't do it, Baha'u'llah says, God will not do it. So 2 stages. Forgive. If you don't, He will not forgive. Wash away. If I don't, He will not wash away. It's going to be recorded there and remembered there. And in the hidden words, Baha'u'llah adds, it's not only recorded there, it is recorded in clear characters. This is Baha'u'llah in the hidden words. I'm sharing these thoughts with you so that we realize how important it is that in our prayers we have the right attitude, which is acceptable in His sight. Now, what is the last part? The last part is, if you do these things, 2 stages, then not only will I wipe out everything in your records, in clear characters, I'll wash away everything, I'll wipe out everything. But then, the last words in this beautiful short tablet, I will place on your shoulders a garment which is beauteous, luminous. That will be your reward. You will carry this luminous vesture, this garb, this cloak, given to you as a gift. Now that you have washed away, this is yours. Our subject this afternoon is on Abdu'l-Bahá, perfect exemplar. Shoghi Effendi made it very clear that Abdu'l-Bahá occupied a station for which we find no parallel in other religious dispensations. And in his own words, he says, by virtue of the rank bestowed upon him by his father, he incarnates an institution that has no parallel in the entire field of religious history. For example, in Judaism, when Moses retired to Mount Sinai and disappeared for a while, he left all the affairs of the community or the Jewish community to his brother, Aaron. And then Aaron passed away before Moses. So he had to appoint another person. And this time he appointed a general, General Joshua, who carried on and led the Jewish people to the Holy Land and succeeded in helping them to settle there. In the case of Sunni Islam, as you know, one of the very early and staunch believers in the Mohammedan dispensation was Abu Bakr, and he became the first caliph after Muhammad passed away. But the Shias, as you know, believe that Imam Ali was the true and sole successor of Muhammad. So they divided into Sunni and Shia Islam. So that's in Christianity, of course. Saint Peter was the prince of the apostles, and it was obvious that he was to be the successor to Jesus Christ and the head of the apostles. And of course, this did not always sit well with many, even the early followers like St. Paul, who was not, as you know, a Christian during the lifetime of Jesus Christ. He was a Jew, he was a rabbi, and in fact he was against the dispensation or the teachings of Jesus Christ. But then he had a vision, and that changed his life, and he became the apostle, St. Paul, and he wrote his letters and traveled a lot and created many communities in Eastern Europe, particularly in Greece. Now, but of course, as you know, the Protestant Church do not accept the statement made by Jesus Christ that Peter, thou art a rock, because the word Peter in Hebrew means rock. Thou art a rock, and on this rock I shall build my church. Now they don't accept this to mean that this meant successorship or succession. They didn't accept that. So they thought, well, this shows the importance of faith and the importance of conviction. So it does not mean that he is necessarily going to be administratively the head of the Christian church. So there was a lot of discussion, and as you know, finally it ended up in the Protestant church separating itself from the Catholic Church as well as from the Orthodox Church. So now my point is to show that we cannot ever compare Abdu'l-Bahá with Peter, with Imam Ali, with Abu Bakr, with Joshua, and so on and so forth. It's impossible. Here you have Baha'u'llah himself appointing his son in a document we know as the Will and Testament of Baha'u'llah, Kitab Ahd, the Book of My Covenant. Also, he put his name, his appointment in the Kitab Aqdas and referred to him as him whom God hath purposed. Later, he referred to him as he round whom all names revolve. Names here, of course, means titles and ranks and positions. All of them should revolve around Abdu'l-Bahá. He is the limb of the law of God, and so on. So if I would like maybe to read to you some of the titles and designations that we find in the writings about Abdu'l-Bahá as listed by Shoghi Effendi. There are 15 of these titles. I would like to read them to you to show the range of authority that Abdu'l-Bahá conferred upon Abdu'l-Bahá. The center and pivot of Baha'u'llah's covenant, his most exalted handiwork, the stainless mirror of his light, the perfect exemplar of his teachings, the unerring interpreter of his word, the embodiment of every Baha'i ideal, the incarnation of every Baha'i virtue, the most mighty branch sprung from the ancient root, the limb, L-I-M-B, the limb of the law of God, the being round whom all names revolve, the mainspring of the oneness of humanity, the ensign of the most great peace, the moon of the central orb of this most holy dispensation, the mystery of God, he who, in his person, the characteristics of a human nature and superhuman knowledge and perfection are blended and harmonized. So it is impossible, of course, to list a comprehensive list of all the qualities and virtues and the characteristics of this remarkable figure in religious history. It's impossible. So I've just chosen a few of these characteristics, and I will be discussing these in a brief way as we go along. It's impossible. Just let's take one thing. His lack of prejudice is one of the characteristics of Abdu'l-Bahá. Stories could be told, so many stories, about his lack of prejudice when it came to race, when it came to religious beliefs, or when it came to gender, or when it came to social status or class. Many, many dozens of stories about each one of these acts and characteristics to show his lack of prejudice. On his attitude, on behavior towards the poor, the sick, the children, the intellectuals, the uneducated, those weighed down by materialism, those occupying positions of authority, those who are deprived of human rights. So we'll have to just satisfy ourselves with a few selected characteristics. It's impossible. Even I'm sure that many authors in the future will make such compilations and truly try to introduce to us this unique figure in religious history. During the lifetime of Baha'u'llah, Abdu'l-Bahá was not known as Abdu'l-Bahá. No. He was known as the most great branch. All the friends in the Holy Land, in Iran, referred to him as Ghusn A'zam, the most great branch. That was his title, not Abdu'l-Bahá, because he adopted this name for himself later. The friends always called him Sarkar Agha, the master, or sometimes Agha, which meant also, of course, the master. If any of the Aghsan, one of his other sons, would be referred to as the master, Baha'u'llah would be upset. There is one Agha, there is one master. That was his most great branch. To the non-Baha'i world, by that I mean in Palestine, in those days, particularly the Oriental people, the Arabs more particularly, and so on, they referred to Abdu'l-Bahá as Abbas Effendi. They didn't refer to him as Abdu'l-Bahá, no. He was known as Abbas Effendi. Members of the Baha'i community were referred to as members of the community of Abbas Effendi. During the lifetime of Shoghi Effendi, this changed and it became Baha'is. I just wanted to give you this little bit of history. Now, after the passing of Baha'u'llah, for 4 years, Abdu'l-Bahá kept quiet about the opposition, the misrepresentations of his half-brother, Muhammad Ali. For 4 years, Muhammad Ali continued to stay in the mansion, and Abdu'l-Bahá continued to remain in Acre in the house of Abud. And he even instructed the local Baha'is not to write about the behavior of Muhammad Ali and the way Muhammad Ali was trying to discredit him. He often used to say, that I have asked the friends before they send their letters abroad to show them to me. And any references to Muhammad Ali and so on, he said, because in those days the ink that was used, it could easily erase by just putting some of your saliva. Do you know how much ink I had to swallow? Because he did not want the news to spread. He was hoping that perhaps his brother would change his mind or his attitude. I don't want to go now in the way Muhammad Ali tried to poison the minds of the people, of the believers. For example, he would say that, as you know, in the will and testament of my father, he appoints his successor. His successor is, of course, Abdu'l-Bahá. But he has also appointed a successor to his successor. Have you ever heard any head of a tribe or head of a community to appoint a successor and a successor to a successor? Do you know why? This is the devilish way in which he used to poison the minds of the poor Baha'is. It is because he wanted to protect my rights. That's why he did that. Abdu'l-Bahá does not consult with me. I'm supposed to succeed him. Isn't it right that he should consult with? We should consult together about the future affairs of the cause? Poor, simple, devoted, humble Baha'is. That makes sense, doesn't it? That's the way he infiltrated for 4 years. But Abdu'l-Bahá wanted the Baha'is themselves to see what was happening. He did not want to discredit his brother. Keep quiet. Wait, pray, see what happens. Perhaps he will change. He never changed. So at that point, because another accusation was, my brother is declaring himself to be a manifestation of God. He now reveals tablets, and the Baha'is all over the world consider him to be equal to Baha'u'llah. Abdu'l-Bahá never considered himself to be equal to Baha'u'llah or declared himself as a prophet or a manifestation of God. He always considered himself to be under the shadow of Baha'u'llah. He was not the sun. The sun was Baha'u'llah. He was not another sun. He was the moon to Baha'u'llah. How could he be another sun? But his accusations were like that. Such were his misrepresentations. I think enough of this. And so that's why he changed his name. He said, don't call me anymore Sarkar Agha and most great branch and limb of the law of God. Put all these things aside. My name is Abdu'l-Bahá, servant of Bahá. I'm servant of Baha'u'llah. That's it. I don't want any other title, any other name. That was the position that... So from then on, everybody started calling him Abdu'l-Bahá. And he referred to himself as Abdu'l-Bahá. But the people in Acre and Haifa continued to call him just Abbas Effendi. They didn't call him Abdu'l-Bahá. The Baha'is called him Abdu'l-Bahá. He was still Abbas Effendi to them. I will now start with one of these characteristics of Abdu'l-Bahá. This idea of his being the exemplar is a title, of course, that was used for the first time in the letters of Shoghi Effendi. Because he himself had said, be like me, be as I am. You know, he was telling the friends to be like himself. In other words, the not seeking recognition, not seeking stations and ranks and so on, being humble and being hardworking and being only wanting to serve the cause of Baha'u'llah. Be like me in that sense. Shoghi Effendi, during the ministry of Abdu'l-Bahá, for a period of 18 months, after he finished his schooling in the Collège des Frères in Haifa, which was a French school run by Jesuits, very rigid, everything was rigid. And so after finishing that school, and not only there, but he also continued his studies a little bit in Beirut. But after his university also in Beirut, and before he left for Oxford, so he had a period of 18 months when he felt that he could be in the presence of Abdu'l-Bahá and try to imbibe as much as he could from his grandfather's spirit and teachings. Abdu'l-Bahá accepted him as to be one of his secretaries. So for these 18 months, he was secretary, one of the secretaries of Abdu'l-Bahá. He had the advantage over all the other secretaries that his English was fluid, complete, perfect. And he wrote his diary in English. And he typed it, put a carbon copy as well for a second copy. And there is an entry, and he used to send extracts of his diary to Star of the West. These were published in Star of the West in those days. In one of these entries in his diary, he says something very interesting. He says, one night, Abdu'l-Bahá was talking to the pilgrims. And he said that, as the friends know, I have certain physical ailments. He had some troubles. For example, he had a propensity for catching colds. He had rheumatism. He had what he called nervous fever. Tabi asabi, nervous fever, or fever of my nerves. He had these problems, and the friends knew this. They could see that Abdu'l-Bahá was not well. Now, Abdu'l-Bahá, commenting about his own physical ailments, said something very interesting one night, and Shoghi Effendi recorded it. He said that I can get rid of my physical ailments with one prayer, and I'll beg Baha'u'llah to help, and he will heal me. We have all these healing prayers precisely for that purpose. I'm not doing it because I want the friends to know, to see, to realize that even with physical ailments, one should continue to serve the cause. I am doing it so that others will follow my example. Although I have pains, I have fever, I carry on, I plod on, because I want them to realize that they should not suddenly withdraw into himself because I'm sick, because I'm tired, because I'm old, or whatever. Carry on to the last breath. This is recorded by Shoghi Effendi in one of his entries. I think another quality that's very important for us to remember is his purity of heart. Baha'u'llah says, my first counsel is this: possess a pure, a kindly, a radiant heart. The first quality is purity of heart, and there's no match. He is the exemplar, the unique exemplar. But we should try and purify our hearts, to purify the motives of our conduct. I think there is quite a link between purity of motive and purity of heart. For example, when Abdu'l-Bahá enumerates the duties of local members of local assemblies, he says, number one, purity of motive. Baha'u'llah says, my first counsel is, possess a pure, kindly, and radiant heart. Purity of motive, purity of heart are, if you like, brothers and sisters. And purity of motive is very easy to detect. Purity of heart, you can deceive yourself. Yes, I have purity of heart. But purity of motive, you can bring yourself to account, as Baha'u'llah says in the hidden words. Ask yourself, why am I doing what am I doing? Why? It's between me and myself. Why am I doing this? Why am I traveling? Why am I writing? Why am I teaching? Why am I, whatever anybody is doing for the cause, it is good to ask ourselves, why? What is the motivation? If in the silence of our heart, if we want to be honest, I'm doing this so that people will say, Ali is quite a good speaker. Oh, his knowledge of the faith is really good, If that is the motivation, zero. Complete zero. So the motivation should be pure. How does one purify the motives? I'm doing this, I should be doing this, and I should continue to try to do this for his sake. He sees it's enough. He knows it's enough. He's pleased. It's enough. That is purity of motive, I think. Ask myself, why am I doing this, what I am doing? And only I can answer. Nobody else can answer. And Baha'u'llah tells me, bring yourself to account each day before thou art brought to a reckoning. The true reckoner is up there. He sees. In the hidden words, he says, I see the secrets of your hearts. We think it's all wrapped up and no one knows about it. We say, that's what you think. I see. I know what the secrets of your heart is at any time. How can we hide it? I ask of thee by thine eye that sleepeth not. That's his eye. It's the only eye that does not sleep. He said, I see. I know. So if he knows, he's the true reckoner, how can I hide anything from him? Nothing. Therefore I should stand in awe in his presence, in humility in his presence, and beg him to help me to purify my motives, so that would be a stepping stone for the purity of my heart. This is from the hidden words. There is no peace for thee save by renouncing thyself. The Arabic hidden words. Forget all save me. Turn away from thyself. Abdu'l-Bahá, one is released from the prison of self, that is indeed freedom. The greatest prison is the prison of self. Another quality, outstanding quality of Abdu'l-Bahá was his sin-covering eye. There is a beautiful letter, a tablet, revealed by Abdu'l-Bahá to one of the friends in the United States who spent many months in Haifa. He returned to the United States I don't want to mention his name because this would be kind of backbiting. He came back to the United States, and it's obvious from Abdu'l-Bahá's tablet that he was writing about the weaknesses of the friends. This person has said that, this person has done that, and so on and so forth. Gossip, backbiting. Abdu'l-Bahá was very displeased. The answer to him is like this. You came here, you saw me, you saw how I behave with people. I act in such a way that I do not see their faults. To such an extent that I am prepared that they think that I am weak-minded. I don't notice. I'm prepared for them to come to this conclusion rather than open my mouth and say anything of the weaknesses of others and how they are behaving. You saw that. Why your letter is so full of backbiting, shortcomings of others, and exempting yourself from everything else because you think you are perfect? Baha'u'llah in the Kitab-i-Iran says that we should be silent about the faults of others. This is Baha'u'llah himself. We should help them and to pray for them. Baha'u'llah in the Iran says we have to forgive the sinful. For this is very important. For none knoweth what his own end shall be. I don't know what my end is going to be. And I'm sorry to say, you also do not know. And you also do not know what the end of someone that you think is a very bad Baha'i, what his end shall be. You don't know that. So how can you pride yourself of, Alhamdulillah, I am who I am. I am not 100% perfect as Abdu'l-Bahá, but I am almost there. There is no doubt. It's the ego speaking. It's the ego ordering, insisting. It is the ego which veils the eyes, misguides, and helps us to fall into the abyss. Nothing else. In his Will and Testament, Abdu'l-Bahá says that people have been unkind to me. They have ascribed faults that I did not commit. They have misrepresented me. They have made me suffer. They have persecuted me. However, in his prayer he says, "Oh God, forgive them," because they did not know what they were doing. If they did this, it was through ignorance, through immaturity. Ask God to forgive them. That is the Baha'i attitude. Sin covering eye. In one of his tablets, Abdu'l-Bahá said, we should consider others to be greater than ourselves. Wow, this is not an easy thing to do. To consider others greater than ourselves and ourselves less than others. This does not mean inferiority complex. It does not mean that. It means that we have to realize that we don't know what our end shall be. We cannot pride ourselves in the name of self-respect and self-esteem. Don't mix the two. You think it is self-esteem, but it could very well be pride and arrogance. Another important quality that Abdu'l-Bahá had, and he wanted us to follow his example, was his consideration and courtesy towards others. Look at these beautiful, immortal words of Abdu'l-Bahá. Beware, beware lest ye offend any heart. Beware, beware, lest ye hurt any soul. Should anyone become the cause of grief to anyone's heart, it were better for him to hide himself in the lowest depths of the earth than to walk upon it. When Abdu'l-Bahá was in London, I think he was in the home of Lady Blomfield. There was a knock at the door. They opened the door and they saw this dear lady. She said, I have walked for so long. I have heard that Abdu'l-Bahá is in this house. Could I see him? Now, I think it was the secretary of the Lady Blomfield. She opens the appointment book. Do you have an appointment? No. I'm sorry, you cannot see him. You must have an appointment. Abdu'l-Bahá heard this conversation. He rushed out of his room. Let her in. I will see her. A heart has been broken. That was Abdu'l-Bahá. Many things have been written about his charity, his generosity. He was known in Acre as the father of the poor. He used to get up early in the morning at 5 o'clock when his own family were fast asleep. Now he would leave his house early in the morning, go to the home of the sick, not Baha'is, Muslims, Christians, Jews, whatever. There were 500 poor people in Acre while Abdu'l-Bahá was living there. And there was no facilities, there was no institutions at all to look after the needy during the Ottoman period. There was nothing. That's why Abdu'l-Bahá did all these things, because there was no agency, no institution responsible for these things. He would go and knock at their doors, wake them up. How is so-and-so? How is his health? Is he doing well? When he saw that the sick person his condition had worsened, he would go to the house of the doctor in town. He would give the address. He would pay the fees of the doctor, asking him to go immediately to this house and see what he can do. He also gave him money for what his estimate would be roughly. Because in those days there were very few medicines that were available. So it was not very difficult to make an estimate. He would pay him cash. If it is not enough, come to me, I'll pay you the rest. He once said, Baha'u'llah trained me. He taught me that I should be ready to lift burdens from the shoulders of others and not to place my own burdens on their shoulders. Just the opposite. Another quality of the master was his patience. Baha'u'llah used to say, look at the master. See how he listens first to what the person is saying about himself, about his beliefs, about his knowledge. Patiently he sits and listens, so that this person would empty himself or herself. After this period of patience, then he would start speaking. He was patient even with his enemies, not only with his friends and the believers. Another noteworthy quality of Abdu'l-Bahá was his detachment. As you know, there is no specific definition of what detachment really means, but we clearly know that it's not asceticism and it is not Puritanism. It is not to be allowed to be influenced from anything which would stop the person from turning towards God. Anything that helps, promotes, instigates to forget God and to listen to the ego, we have to be detached from that thing. That's one of the definitions that we find in the writings in an ambiguous way. Anything that intervenes between us and God should be avoided. Anything. And it is from that we should be detached. Detachment, Baha'u'llah says, gives us wings. We can fly. Without detachment, we're tied down. We're earthbound. We cannot fly. If the friends insisted that he should accept a gift from him, especially when it was in terms of cash or a check, he would not accept it. When they insisted, he would take the check. He says, all right, I have accepted it. But now I would like to offer it to you. Take the money and give it to the poor. That's how he was. This statement in the hidden words, rejoice in the gladness of thy heart. If we are not detached, we cannot enjoy our hearts. We cannot enjoy spiritual union with our beloved. We are continuously weighed down by our attachment to this world of dust. Thy heart is my home, sanctified from my descent. This is a story recounted by Shoghi Effendi to Ruhiya Khanum, Abdu'l-Bahá. And it was about Abdu'l-Bahá. And she shared this little story with pilgrims at times or with local believers at other times. But it's a very sweet story about the way Abdu'l-Bahá, the degree rather, to which he was detached. There was one rug left in the master's house because he had given away all the other rugs. One of the housemaids saw that Abdu'l-Bahá was trying to roll up this last rug. She ran immediately to the room of the greatest holy leaf and told her this is what was happening. The greatest holy leaf rushed out of her room and before the rug was rolled up, she stood on the rug. She said, if you want to give this rug away, you'll have to give me away too. He stopped. He didn't do it. This other story I want to tell you is something I have heard from one of the gardeners of Abdu'l-Bahá, who was stationed in Baji to look after the gardens in the shrine, around the shrine of Baha'u'llah. Of course, in those days, the flower beds were very few around the shrine of Baha'u'llah. In fact, the land that the faith owned was very limited. It was later on that Shoghi Effendi succeeded in acquiring more property around the shrine. He told me this story. He said, it was evening and I was in Baji. He said that Abdu'l-Bahá arrived just at around sunset. He arrived from Haifa. He said he wanted to spend the night at the pilgrim house in Baji. And so he prepared a little bit of food for him, and Abdu'l-Bahá went to his room. You know, there is a small room in the old pilgrim house in Baji, which was Abdu'l-Bahā's bedroom. He rested there for the night. He said it was his practice to get up very early in the morning, and there was a pump, hand pump, in Baji. I'll try to explain to you where it was because I had seen it myself. You know, as you leave the pilgrim house, not through the door which faces the sea, but that small room which leads out towards the south, so to speak. And then you have to re-enter the property, the gardens, from a small gate which is between the wall of the shrine of the mansion of Baha'u'llah, and on the other side the shrine of Baha'u'llah, or the pilgrim house and the shrine of Baha'u'llah. There was a pump halfway down that wall of the mansion. There used to be a pump, a well there, and a hand pump. So he was coming to the hand pump in order to pump some water for the flowers. He said, as soon as I arrived there, I saw Abdu'l-Bahá already up. He has his hand on the handle of the pump. He's been pumping. He's tired. He's put his head leaning on the wall next to the pump, and he's fast asleep. He said, when I saw that, I immediately stopped, and I tried to hide myself behind a tree or something so that I don't disturb him. I waited, and Abdu'l-Bahá woke up. As soon as he woke up, he continued pumping. There was a bucket and under the pump, and he was pumping the water. He said, I continued just watching and seeing. When the bucket was full of water, he carried it, went to near the shrine of Baha'u'llah. There was a small bed of flowers there, and he himself started watering these flowers. Of course, he knew he had a gardener. He knew that that was his job. No, he wanted to do it himself because of his love for Baha'u'llah. He didn't want anybody to know, anybody to see, but that was the degree of, on the one hand, his love for Baha'u'llah, and on the other, the purity of all his deeds. Another quality of Abdu'l-Bahá was his tolerance. I would like to read to you this passage, which clearly points out what his attitude was. He said, the new garden of Baha'u'llah has its gates wide open. We must tolerate those who do not care to enter, those who step inside but do not penetrate far away, those who walk around, survey it, intellectually perhaps, and even inhale the fragrance of the roses. Yet they decide to drop out and leave the garden. But, thank God, there is a fourth group, those who become intoxicated with the beauty of the garden after entering it, and they remain in the garden in order to take care of it. Shaykh Effendi used to say there are two types of believers. There are those whose religion is Baha'i, and there are those who live for the faith. Both of them are Baha'is, but there is a big difference between the two. There is another tablet revealed by Abdu'l-Bahá which shows the difference between the two types of believers. He says there are two kinds of relationships. Two kinds of relationships of the believers to the cause of God. One kind is the relationship of, this tablet has not yet been translated into English. I hope it will be very soon. One kind is the relationship, those who are like the relationship of the flower in a garden. The other is the relationship of a ray of the sun to the sun. Oh, it would have been so wonderful if you could just stop there. He didn't. He continued, my hope, writing to the recipient of the tablets, my hope is that your relationship will be of the second kind. And he signs off. Now, he doesn't say why he has that preference. He doesn't say. He leaves it to you and to me to try and think about it, meditate about it, try to see what's the difference between these two types of relationship. The rose in the garden, now this is, of course, from now on, it is Ali speaking. It's not Abdu'l-Bahá. You are welcome to accept. You are welcome to change. You are welcome to completely disagree with me. But I am offering you my thoughts. All right, we take the first one, the plant in the garden, or let's say the rose in the garden. What's wrong with that? There is a prayer, oh God, make me a rose in thy garden. What's wrong with that? Nothing. In fact, Abdu'l-Bahá says, this is a relationship. He accepts it as a relationship. The other one is also a relationship. But what's the difference? The rose in the garden says, give me. I need water. If you don't give me water, I'll wither away. Give me water. Make sure about my soil. It should be good soil. Change my soil. Fertilize my soul. Make sure that somehow I get the light of the sun, the warmth of the sun, that I can grow. All the time, give me, and give me. What does the ray do? The ray doesn't want anything. The ray shines. It gives warmth, it gives light, it gives energy. It doesn't say, give me anything. It just gives all the time. And that, I think, perhaps, is why Abdu'l-Bahá preferred us to be rays and not just flowers. To be just a flower is what Shoghi Effendi says, our religion is Baha'i. My religion is Baha'i. I'm proud of my religion. I like it very much. But that's all. I don't do anything else. I'm just proud of it. But the ray is not like that. The ray lives for the cause of God because it gives all the time. It imparts all the time. It enlivens all the time. It inspires all the time. It assists all the time. It sacrifices all the time. I think this is my understanding. Now, as I said, you can find better reasons because Abdu'l-Bahá does not say why. Another thought that occurred to me was that you put two flowers next to each other. Of course, these flowers, thank God, have no ego. But supposing we credit some ego to these flowers, what happens? One rose will say, look at my height. You small little rose. I'm not saying anything, but never mind. The little one says, yes, it is true that you have this height. Do you have my fragrance? Do you have my scent? Look at my wonderful scent. Of course, I'm not talking about it, but never mind. Thank God these flowers do not have any ego. You put two flowers, there are two flowers. You put 5 flowers together, it's a beautiful bouquet. Wonderful. You bring 2 rays, you put them together, they become 1 ray. You put 5 rays together, they become 1 strong 5 rays. Sorry. They become one strong one. Yeah. That shows you what's happening up here. Okay. You put 9 rays together, they become one strong ray, members of its local spiritual assembly. That is true unity. But the flowers cannot become one rose. 2 flowers will continue to be 2 roses, but rays will unite. Because there is no self. They join, they unify, harmony. So this could be another reason. I am sure if you meditate on it, you will find good, sound other reasons, sounder than what I have suggested. I would like us to see how Shoghi Effendi summarizes the travels of Abdu'l-Bahá in the West. This is from God Passes By. During these travels, Abdu'l-Bahá displayed a vitality, a courage, a single-mindedness, a consecration to the task he had set himself to achieve that excited the wonder and admiration of those who had the privilege of observing at close hand his daily acts. Expending every ounce of his energy, day after day, from dawn till late at night, unfailing in his solicitude for the sick, the sorrowful, and the downtrodden, uncompromising in his championship of the underprivileged races and classes, bountiful as the rain in his generosity to the poor, contemptuous of the attacks launched against him, and last but not least, incomparable in the spontaneity, the genuineness and warmth of his sympathy and loving kindness, shown to friend and stranger alike, believer and unbeliever, rich and poor, high and low, whom he met. He continued for 3 crowded years to trumpet to a world sunk in materialism and already in the shadow of war, the healing, the God-given truths enshrined in his Father's revelation. Truly, it is remarkable what Abdu'l-Bahá accomplished during these 3 years. At that age, he was tired, but fatigue was not a cause for him to stop. The way Shoghi Effendi describes what he did, day after day, sometimes he would give 5 talks during 24 hours. 5 talks. It's not easy at that age to be able to do that. Friends, fatigue is not an excuse. Death is an excuse. Not fatigue. Mr. Samandari once said that one day Shoghi Effendi told him to come down from the pilgrim house when he was on pilgrimage to the Master's house, and they will go together to the shrine. So he went there to the Master's house. About 4 o'clock, Shoghi Effendi came out of his house. He said, when he came to see me, he looked at me. This was 1940. He looked at me, he said, my eyes are tired. My fingers are tired. Because he did all his typing himself. Nabil's narrative. See how great is that book. Everything was typed by Shoghi Effendi. The Kitab-i-Iran by him. Epistle to the Son of the World. prayers and meditations, advent of divine justice, the promised day is come, all his major messages on his small, portable typewriter. He also in those days, of course, had carbon copies, sometimes more than one carbon copy. And you know it is, I mean, you type it's the wrong key, then you have to correct it. One copy, you erase. Second copy, you have to erase. Third copy. That was Shoghi Effendi. So he said that my fingers are tired. Then finally, my nerves are tired. My eyes are tired. My fingers are tired. My nerves are tired. That's the first thing he said. Then he carried on discussing other things. But just imagine, 1940, he passed away in 1957. 17 years he plodded on steadfastly, unremittingly, for 17 years with this feeling of fatigue. How can fatigue be an excuse? Impossible. I would like to read to you these words uttered by Abdu'l-Bahá and recorded by Mrs. May Maxwell as they left their first pilgrimage. They left Acre, their first pilgrimage. And these words, these eternal words, were uttered by Abdu'l-Bahá. As I read them, please allow these words to sink into your hearts and allow them to remain there for the rest of your life. Pray that your hearts may be cut from yourselves and from the world, that you may be confirmed by the Holy Spirit and filled with the fire of the love of God. And now I give you a commandment between you and me, that you have faith, that your faith be steadfast as a rock, that no storms can move, that nothing can disturb, and that it endure through all things, even to the end. As ye have faith, so shall your powers and blessings be. This is the balance. This is the balance. This is the balance. Another commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, even as I love you. Look at me. Follow me. Be as I am. Take no thought for yourselves. Take no thought for yourselves or your lives, whether ye eat or whether ye sleep, whether you are comfortable, whether you are well or ill, whether you are with friends or foes, whether you receive praise, whether you receive praise or blame. For all of these things, ye must not care at all. Behold a candle. Behold a candle. How it gives its light. It weeps its life away, drop by drop, in order to give forth its flame of light. As it is written in your programs, today is for reflections and footnotes. I would like to start with footnotes. In the discussion that we had about prayer, it occurred to me that I could add few points to this important subject. There is a tablets revealed by Abdu'l-Bahá in which he includes a sentence which I think is very important. In Persian, it is this: Dar aksar awqat man dar hal tazarru'an. Most of the time, I am in an attitude of prayer. He doesn't say all the time. But I don't think he means 51%. I think he means more than just 51%. Most of the time. Now, Abdu'l-Bahá was a very busy person. And from morning, early dawn, till God knows when at night, he was busy. Busy with correspondence, busy with meeting officials, busy with receiving guests, busy with pilgrims, busy with taking them to the shrines and talking to them, advising them, busy with the local believers. Every night he would meet with them. He was a very busy person. How is it possible for someone so busy to be most of the time in an attitude of prayer? I want us to think about this a little bit. The first question that comes to mind, of course, is, how is it possible to do more than one thing at the same time? If I do that, I can't do anything. Is this correct? According to what I understand, it is not correct. I can do a number of things at the same time. I sit in a car of my friend. He is driving. At the same time, he has to watch the traffic. He has to see if there is any problem with the engine or with his tires. If he hears anything which is unfamiliar, he's worried. And the traffic. And he has me sitting next to him. And he has a conversation with me. And he makes points and he laughs about it. And he discusses it. All these things he's doing at the same time. And what's more, he has his radio on, he's listening to the news. And furthermore, he receives a phone call, or mobile as we call it. And he's talking and discussing all the things at the same time. Of course it is possible. And we should try to do that. We should try to live according to what Abdu'l-Bahá says. He's saying this about himself so that we learn how to live. He is our exemplar. We have to be like him. So I suggest that we think about this. How is it possible for us to feel that we are in an attitude of prayer? To feel that we are in the presence of God. To feel that He sees me all the time. He knows me. Maybe He has also cohorts, hosts of the kingdom, or at least one of them, to assist. So we should be in an attitude of prayer. It's such an important thing to be aware that we are in the presence of our Lord while we are doing anything. Of course, He doesn't say all the time, nor does He say open a prayer book and read the prayer. No. He says an attitude of prayer, in the mood of prayer, feeling the presence of God all the time. So I thought that this point was important enough for me to add as a footnote. I want to share with you a story that I heard from Janab Samandari, Tarazullah Samandari. I'm sure you have heard his name, Hand of the Cause of God, and so on. He said that during the ministry of Abdu'l-Bahá, he had been asked by the beloved Master, together with another Baha'i, his name was Mirza Ali Akbar Rafsanjani, to travel all over Iran and Ashgabat in order to help the friends, comfort the friends, because it was a time when the second commission of investigation had come to the Holy Land, and there was a fear that he might be condemned to death, maybe exiled, or in some form persecuted, and no one knew what was going to happen. So he wanted the friends in Iran to be aware that there is a danger, that he doesn't have a moment's assurance of life, of safety. But if anything should happen, he wanted the friends to be united. He wanted the friends to be aware and not in any way worry about the future of the cause. because this was God's holy cause and it's going to be protected, preserved, and in every way looked after and watched over by Baha'u'llah. So with this introduction, now Mr. Samandari is on pilgrimage in the days of Abdu'l-Bahá. And Abdu'l-Bahá used to meet the local friends and the pilgrims every night in the house of Abdullah Pasha, in what was known as the Biruni. It was a room where he met with the local friends and so on. He says the practice, of course, was Abdu'l-Bahá would speak, there would be prayers, there would be readings from some of the tablets for about 1 hour. And then he would stand up and leave. And everybody dispersed. He said that one day Abdu'l-Bahá apparently finished his talk. Then he looked at Janab Samandari and he said, "You say something to the friends." Samandari said, before coming here, if we have any question, we put the words together and memorize the sentence so that it's clear, so we don't stumble over words. But when we come here, we forget everything. Now, what can I say? In your presence, what can I say? Abdu'l-Bahá took no notice. He said, "You say something to the friends." Samandari said, "I did not know what to say. Suddenly I remembered an incident during our travels in Iran. So I told them about this story. The story goes like this. We arrived in a village. There were Baha'is, they are local believers. Most of the village were Baha'is. And we stayed there 3 days. We were so impressed by the unity, the harmony which existed in this community. Everybody pure-heartedly, lovingly were united in harmony with each other. Also, we were impressed by the fact that every morning they got up at dawn and even with their children they would come and gather in one house and have prayers. So that was it. We were very happy. We were going to leave. Before we left, they said, "Oh no, please don't go now. We want to show you something." So they took us to the edge of the village, which was a river. And this side of the river was this village, where most of them were Baha'is. And the other side of the bank of the river was the Muslim village. They said, "Look at our wheat. This is a field of wheat. Look at the height of the grass. Look at the other side. See, compare the other height of the wheat with ours. This one is so high. The other one is so low. The seeds are the same seeds. We take them from the government. The water is the same water that irrigates the fields. The soil is the same soil. The air is the same air. The sun is the same sun. How is it that ours grows like this, so healthily, so freshly, but the other is so slow?" We said, "It is because of your unity, and it is because of your prayers." That was his story. Abdu'l-Bahá said, "Your answer was correct." Unity and prayer. If you like, prayer and unity. That brings freshness, strength, joy to the hearts, and even has an effect on the vegetable world. When I was speaking about prayer, I said that there is a need for preparation, as I understood it, because of the example of the ladder, that there is then the reading of the revealed word, and then there is your private conversation with your Creator, through the manifestation of God, or the manifestation of God Himself. Open your heart and see what you want to say, even if it is thank you. All praise be to you for all the blessings you have given me. Even if that, it should be in our own, we should feel about it and express it. That's the third stage. I want to tell you what I have seen over and over again. When I was a youth, when I was a junior youth, when I was fully aware, when I was a full youth, and when I was on pilgrimage as well. Shoghi Effendi, I'm talking about now the early years, was always the last to enter the shrines. He would stand near the door and pour rose water into the hands, the palms of the people, the believers. And then when everybody had gone inside the shrine, the friends were aware that he's going to come last. They always left an aisle for him to be able to pass through. He would be the last to enter. What did he do? He first prostrated himself at the threshold. After his prostration, it wasn't too long. He would stand up. And there is the tablet of visitation. Well, he knew the tablet of visitation by heart, because in the shrine of Baha'u'llah there is no tablet of visitation there at all. It was always by heart. He knew that, the tablets. But he was standing in front of the tablet. And there was again a pause, and then he would chant. Now, I don't want to describe his heavenly voice, his heavenly melody. That's something else. Now he's finished. This is the revealed word now. What does he do? Does he come out immediately? No. He prostrates himself a second time. Total silence. Everybody is standing. Because no one wants to disturb Shoghi Effendi's prostration. He prostrates himself. This time it's longer. He's having his conversation with Baha'u'llah, we should suppose. Longer than the first prostration. Then he would stand up and back out. Some of the pilgrims, the local believers knew that they should avoid anything that would disturb him. Some of the pilgrims were not fully aware. So as he was coming out, instead of continuing to face the shrine, they would turn their faces towards him as he went out of respect to Shoghi Effendi. He did not like it. He would put his shoes on and wait on such occasions. He would wait until those pilgrims that he saw were bowing to him and not turning their faces continuing to turn their faces to the shrine. In a subdued voice, he would say, when you are in the shrines, your focus should be the threshold of the shrine, not on others. So this last part has nothing to do with an attitude of prayer. My point is, in relating this little incident about my pilgrimages or the period when I was particularly during the first period of my life, was the fact that I could see right there that there are 3 stages. First, a prostration, preparing himself for the recitation of the tablet, the revealed word, then the recitation of the tablet itself, and then again a pause, even a longer pause for his personal exchange with Baha'u'llah or through Abdu'l-Bahá or whatever it was. I thought I should share this feeling with you. You know that prayer of Abdu'l-Bahá, make firm our steps, O Lord. And then there is that sentence where he describes what true prayer is. A prayer that shall rise above words and letters and transcend the murmur of syllables and sound. That's prayer. When I see some people come here, they read the prayer, they disappear. It doesn't touch my heart, to tell you the truth. I prefer someone to come here, first of all, pause a little bit. The Persians have a very wonderful way of doing this. They start with, He is God. Huwallah. Sometimes they even say, Huwallah, in other words, please be quiet. A feeling of attention, of pause, of reverence. Then the prayer. And then when the prayer is finished, they don't just disappear, they pause a little bit. Then they leave. That's true prayer. When of course, we are together. When you are at home, you can do it the way you like. But when you are in public here, and when we read the prayer should be clear, should be heard by everybody. It is true that I have hearing aids and I'm half deaf, but I see that others tell me we did not hear the words. We mumble, we jump immediately as if there is somebody pressing us to finish the prayer. The reading of the prayer is so that everybody will hear. You are not praying just for yourself so that you hear it yourself. You are really to deliver the prayer in a reverent way to the friends, because this is why you are there, to chant that prayer or to recite that prayer. Okay, now I would like to share with you some of my reflections. The Greatest Holy Leaf loved children very much, and my mother had special relationship with the Greatest Holy Leaf because she had spent her youth in the Master's house, in the house of Abdu'l-Bahá as a child. So we used to go to the Master's house quite often because the Greatest Holy Leaf sometimes asked my mother to come to help her. One day I was about 5 years old, and the Greatest Holy Leaf, as I said, loved children. And she had a habit of, if she wanted to show special love or affection to somebody, she would have her hands to hand. She would ask the person she's talking to put their hand between her two hands. And God knows, every time she did this with my small little hand, the softness of the palms of her hand, I will never forget, really. Velvety, silken, extremely soft. She would hold this hand. One day she told me, looking at me as a child, she said, "What would you like to do when you grow up?" Of course, she was talking in Persian. Quickly, I wanted to say, I want to be like my father because my father was a teacher. By teacher, I meant teaching the cause. And we have a special word in Persian which describes this, muballigh in Persian. So I said, I wanted to say, I want to become a muballigh. I said the wrong word. She was holding my, oh. You know what I had said? Instead of saying, I want to become a Baha'i teacher of some kind, I said, I want to become a prophet. For those of you who are Persian, I said, I want to become Peygambar. He said, oh. She called my mother in the other room, Fatma Khanum, come. Your son is ready to declare his mission. As I said, we never left the Greatest Holy Leaf without receiving something from her. Always. Either a chocolate, or she would give some Persian gas that the Persian pilgrims had come to her and given her. Always she gives something to us. My brother Jalal had a different personality than I had. He was very loud, he was very open, very extrovert and everything. Of course, he was a child at that time. He told me that when he was once alone in the presence of the great holy leaf, she didn't have any sweets or anything. She opened her purse, and in those days it was the British mandate, so the currency was British. So she pulled out 1 shilling, and she gave the shilling to my brother Jalal. And she said, half of this is for you, and half of it is for your brother. You go and buy ice cream for yourself. My brother, a performer, takes the coin, because she said half of it, you see. He takes the coin in front of her and he tries to break the coin. He said, it's very difficult, Khanum, very difficult. She laughed. She opened her purse again, gave him another shilling. 1 for you, 1 for your brother. I would like to say a few things about my memories with Shoghi Effendi. As I told you, it was the habit of Shoghi Effendi to always, in my early years, of course, later on, things changed. As the number of pilgrims and the local believers, there were no more local believers, more or less, in Haifa. So there were only pilgrims. But in the early years, there was a community of 350 Baha'is in Haifa. So it was full. So what happened at that time? Now I am a junior youth. I'm 12 years old now, what I'm going to recount to you. Shoghi Effendi would remove his shoes, and there was no arcade, no dome, nothing. In the open, he would stand with a container for rose water in his hand. By the way, he was left-handed. He always kept it in his left hand. But when he wrote in his right hand. But left hand, everything else was left hand. So he was holding there with his left hand, and the friends would come one at a time, and he would pour some rose water in their palms, and then they would enter the shrine. So that was. Now, of course, the line was moving. Suddenly, the line stopped. Everybody is curious. What's happened? So everybody is trying to see what has happened. I saw that Shoghi Effendi is holding this container of rose water in his hand, and there is a local believer waiting to receive it, and Shoghi Effendi is hesitating. He looks at this person from head to toe, from toe to head. Suspense. Of course, it could have been maybe 1 minute, but to me, for example, it appeared to be 5 minutes. You know, when you are waiting, not knowing what's going to happen. Finally, Shoghi Effendi decided to give him the rose water. He gave it to him. He went in. That's the end of the story. But I want to tell you, friends, what happened to me. As a 12-year-old, I said to myself, Ali, Shoghi Effendi's heart is sensitive. There must have been a problem with this guy. If you do something wrong, at that age, I was thinking about this. If you do something wrong, and your turn comes to receive your share of rose water, and Shoghi Effendi hesitates to give it to you, how would you feel? You should be careful about your behavior. Watch your behavior. I'll just share another little story with you. This is now, I'm grown up, I'm no more a child, I'm no more a junior youth. Now I'm on pilgrimage. I've come from Africa, and there are other pilgrims as well. That morning we were in Baji, and we came in the afternoon. Shoghi Effendi that particular day was already in the gardens. So we were in the pilgrim house. One of us were outside and the others were inside. And Shoghi Effendi was seen in the gardens. So he signaled to us, come forward to join him. So we all ran from the pilgrim house to where he was in the garden. There was an elderly gentleman among us. So by the time we reached Shoghi Effendi, he started coughing. Coughing, coughing. Of course, Shoghi Effendi was walking and we were following him. He heard this coughing. He said, looking at him back, he said, "You are tired." This elderly pilgrims said, "Beloved guardian, we were tired, but now that we are in your presence, we have forgotten all our fatigue." Shoghi Effendi was walking. He heard this, he stopped, turned his face. I looked at this beautiful face of Shoghi Effendi. He's not happy. With a very loving voice, he said, "Why did you say this?" The poor man did not know what to say. He was silent. If there was a hole there, I think he was ready to go into the hole and disappear there. He just stood there, didn't know what to say. So Shoghi Effendi continued. He said, "What you should have said was, we were tired. Now that we are in the precincts of the shrine of the Bab, we have forgotten our fatigue." That's what you should have said. Then he continued. He said, "You did not come here to see me." God knows we were there to see him. Never mind, never mind. He said, "You came here to visit the shrines." Then he said this last sentence. He said, "The friends should not fix their gaze on individuals." In Persian, he said, "Ahibba nabayad nazir be afrad bashad." He included himself among the individuals. He, the sign of God. That was the degree of not liking praise. He did not like praise. All the time fixed on Baha'u'llah, on Abdu'l-Bahá, on the Bab, not himself. I remember one day we were in the presence of Shoghi Effendi when I was much younger, in the early years, and the room was full. The pilgrim house was full of the local believers and pilgrims and so on. And then it was the practice of Shoghi Effendi when he spoke to the friends, he would have a pause, and after the pause he would change the subject and say something else. It was that moment of pause. Suddenly we saw that one of the local believers pulled out from his pocket a piece of paper and started reading. He didn't even ask for permission from Shoghi Effendi to read what he wanted to read. I was there, I was shocked when I saw this man. He starts reading. It is a poem. It's in Arabic. It's a poem. First line, second line. It was clear in praise of Shoghi Effendi. He stopped him. He said, "Enough, it is enough. Kafis, kafis." He didn't allow him to continue. Then he said, when the friends want to write poems or in praise of the figures of the faith, it should be about Baha'u'llah, about the Bab, about Abdu'l-Bahá, not about me. No. That was the degree of his true divine humility. That's what it was. You remember I spoke to you about the tablet of Abdu'l-Bahá to be a flower or a plant in the garden and to become a ray instead of a rose, to become a ray from the sun. And I shared with you what Shoghi Effendi said regarding those whose religion is Baha'i and those who live for the faith. What a big difference between these two. All of them are believers. But one of them is minimum. One of them is maximum, or aiming to be maximum, because we can never reach maximum. Because if we reach maximum, we are Abdu'l-Bahá. Possible. But to be satisfied with the mediocre minimum. What is the mediocre minimum? It is, supposing it's 100% scale, 50.01. I am above. I am above the average because I'm 50 0, 1. I'm not minority. I am above average. Do you think this is healthy? I can slip easily from 50 to 49.9 and 49.8 and then 40 and then 39 and then 30. Where will I be? It's a dangerous mediocre, very dangerous. So I think what we should do is not to be satisfied with the minimum, but to aim at the maximum. Over 50.01, at least 50.1. 50.2. How about 50.9? 60, 61, 65. What's wrong with that? 70, 80, 90, 100, possible. We should be high up, as high as we can, and not be satisfied with the mediocre 50%. There is a tablet revealed by Abdu'l-Bahá in which he says, of course, gratitude, thankfulness for blessings received by God, from God, is of course good, no doubt. But he says, unfortunately, this tablet has not been translated into English, but it has a very important point. He says that if you think carefully, it is impossible for any person to thank God adequately. The word adequately is there, which should be written in capital letters. Adequately. Impossible for any man to offer adequately his gratitude to God for even one of his blessings, one of his gifts. It is impossible, Abdu'l-Bahá says. It is impossible. What we should do is to quietly think, have I received blessings? Do I have blessings from God? Oh yes, I do. All right, I take a piece of paper and write this. Oh yes, another. I mean, 5, 6, 7 clear blessings that I have received. Even more than 6. I remember still another 8, 9, 10. Abdu'l-Bahá tells me, Ali, you want to thank God for these? You cannot do it adequately for even one. His answer, therefore, he says, therefore, your only recourse is to feel that you are in the presence of your Lord and you are shamefaced. In Persian, he says, sharmsar, shamefaced, abashed, blushing, ashamed of yourself. For you have received far, far more than what you truly deserve. This is not Ali speaking. I summarized for you this tablet revealed by Abdu'l-Bahá. I would like to read this prayer for you. I would like to see if you see, as I do, a process in this prayer, a well-known prayer of Baha'u'llah. I know not, O my God, what the fire is which thou didst kindle in thy land. Earth can never cloud its splendor, nor water quench its flame. All the peoples of the world are powerless to resist its force. Great is the blessedness of him that hath drawn nigh unto it and heard its roaring. Some, O my God, thou didst, through thy strengthening grace, enable to approach it, while others thou didst keep back by reason of what their hands have wrought. in thy days. Whoso hath hasted towards it and attained unto it, hath in his eagerness to gaze on thy beauty, yielded his life in thy path, and ascended unto thee, wholly detached from aught else except thyself. I beseech thee, O my Lord, by this fire which blazeth and rageth in the world of creation, to rend asunder the veils that have hindered me from appearing before the throne of thy majesty, and from standing at the door of thy gate. Do thou ordain for me, O my Lord, every good thing thou didst send down in thy book, and suffer me not to be far removed from the shelter of thy mercy. Powerful art thou to do what pleaseth thee. Thou art verily the all-powerful, the most generous. What I understand from this prayer is, this is a prayer that's addressed to all of us. Baha'u'llah is saying that there is a fire. This fire is blazing and raging in the world of creation. This is the cause of God. The fire of the cause of God. Now, I am an individual. I know that there is a fire. I have been to it to some extent. I've felt its warmth. I've seen even its flames. Now I know that I must teach. Now what do I do? I want to give you now a story that is only a creation of my own mind. It does not exist anywhere in the writings in this way. I tried to understand this prayer and see the process. Supposing I see a piece of metal in a valley. It's a piece of iron, rusty, dirty, muddy. Supposing I communicate now, because I'm supposed to mix with the people, and this is an individual in the valley of this world. I say, do you know that there is a fire which is raging and blazing in the world of creation? He says, no, I've never heard. Do you want me to show it to you? Yeah, I don't mind. So, I go along with this piece of metal, maybe in my hand, and as we are approaching a mountain, we see that there is smoke. Of course, in this prayer, there is no mention of the smoke. This is Ali Nakhjavani who is adding something now. I tell the piece of metal, you see that smoke? Where there is a smoke, there is fire, you know. He says, yes, I've heard about that. Let's see. So we approach. Baha'u'llah, the first thing he says, draw nigh unto it and heard its roaring. He has seen the smoke. He is approaching. He hears the crackling of the fuel, of the wood. I tell him, do you hear the crackling? There should be fire. You hear it? He says, yes, I do. Let's get closer. Let's get nearer. When we get nearer, he feels the warmth. He was cold, now he feels the warmth. There is something here. There is fire, no doubt. Let's approach it more. He sees the flame. It is fire. Baha'u'llah does not stop there. Because he wants that in his eagerness to gaze on its beauty, he is yielding his life in his path. So I tell my piece of metal, I say, you want to really know what the fire is? Throw yourself into the fire. He throws himself into the fire. He sheds all his dirt, then he sheds all his rust, and then he starts ignited, this piece of iron, ignited. He becomes red hot. He acquires the qualities of fire. You look, you don't know where the fire is ended and where the metal has ended. They are all the same. He's on fire. He understands. He understands what the beauty is. There is a process. I have to be with this piece of metal all along. This is the parent-child relationship, friends. We should realize that we cannot relinquish this responsibility. We have started in finding the ready soul. We have to be with that ready soul all along. They go into the institute process, find he's still my child. I continue to invite him, to show love to him, to help him, to assist him. Then there will be, as I said, far less dropouts. Finally, I want to share with you this thought here. If the individual believer be kindled with the fire of his love, we have to be kindled ourselves. If the individual believer be kindled with the fire of his love, there is another if. If he forgetteth all created things, the words he uttereth shall set on fire them that hear him. He puts two conditions so that our words will set on fire the hearts of our hearers. The first is, if he be kindled with the fire of his love. My dear friends, there are two types of love. I think I may have spoken about love, ardent love and ordinary love. Have I spoken to you about this or I have not? No. Maybe tomorrow I'll talk about that. There are another two types of love. You find this reference in the tablet of Baha'u'llah to the king of Iran, to Nasruddin Shah. He says, those who are around you love you, and I also love you. But those who are around you love you because of the privileges, the gifts that they receive from you. I love you for your own sake. I don't want anything from you. Immediately you see there are two types of love. If I may use my own vocabulary, there is selfish love, there is selfless love. A world of difference between the two. Both are love. But one is selfish. But when it comes to the teaching work, how to apply this now? He says, to be kindled with the fire of the love of God. That love should be selfless, not selfish. In other words, I should not expect any reward. I should not expect any praise. I should not expect any recognition of any kind, or from any quarter, of any kind. That's selfless love. Selfish love, it is for people to know that I who taught this gentleman or this. They would say, oh, Ali is a good teacher. Bravo. Oh. As I often say, this is zero. Nothing in the sight of God is selfishness. This is egotism. This is self-love. This is desire and passion. Selfless love, no reward, no praise. Even if instead of praise I hear blame, neither blame nor praise should affect me. No. I do it for him. He knows it's enough. That is the pure spirit. That is the pure heart. That is the pure motive. That is when the fire burns. And the other one is to forget all created things. Everything. I've already touched on this point when I was speaking about pure love. Forget everything. It includes myself. I should first forget myself. That's my number one. I should forget myself. In his will and testament, Abdu'l-Bahá says, look at the disciples of Christ. See what they did. And the first thing is, they forgot themselves. That's the first condition he's describing in the disciples of Christ. They forgot themselves. I have to forget myself, to think of Him and Him alone. When that happens, then, of course, the words, as Abdu'l-Bahá says, the words he uttereth will affect the souls of the seekers. You know, we have in the writings some analogies given so that we understand how important it is not to fall into the snare of self and passion of the ego. I'll give you one example. This first example is given by Abdu'l-Bahá. The way he explains it is this. He says, think of a bird. Think of an eagle. It soars high up in the sky. And it requires effort to go up and up and up and higher up. And then the eagle looks around. He says, oh, what a view. What a wonderful view this is. And see how high I am. I am over everybody. So why should I continue to have my wings stretched out? I'm tired. I fold my wings for a little while. What happens? The bird falls because it wants to rest. I know that everything has to be done in moderation. That I understand. But this is Abdu'l-Bahā's example. Resting for maybe a minute is okay, but you have to stretch again. Otherwise you fall down. The gravity of the earth will pull you down. You have to try again once. This is why to be completely aware and conscious of what we are doing. We cannot uproot the ego. We cannot. This ego will remain with us to the last breath, according to Baha'u'llah in the Kitab-i-Iqan. To the last breath. When Ruhiya Khanum went to see Mr. Samandari in hospital, in Haifa, he realized that he was going. He was 93 years old. He had seen Baha'u'llah. He had been in the presence of Abdu'l-Bahá. He had carried out the wishes of Abdu'l-Bahá, traveled all over the world. He becomes, during the guardianship, he's serving the cause. He's invited himself, invited with his wife to go to Haifa on pilgrimage. Shoghi Effendi keeps him for 40 days, not 9 days and 19 days. 40 days he kept him. During the war, during the Second World War. Such a man. After the passing of Shoghi Effendi, he is the hand of the cause, like the others. Chief stewards of the embryonic world commonwealth of Baha'u'llah. A great station. All the hands of the cause who were living, 27 of them. The House of Justice is elected. He continues. The House of Justice gives him assignments. He continues. Now he is sick. 93 years old. Ruhiya Khanum goes to him. Ruhiya Khanum said that Mr. Samandari looked at me. He said, Khanum, please pray that I may remain firm and steadfast in the cause to my last breath. That was Janab Samandari. So my point is, there is always a danger for the last minute. That's why Baha'u'llah says you have no right to judge others. You don't know what their end will be. And you don't know what your end will be. How can you be sure? Nobody is sure. To the last breath, there is a danger. Because of that ego. We cannot uproot it, but we have to control it. Okay, so this is just an example. Now Shoghi Effendi gives us another example. How important it is to control. He says, imagine you are in a boat. And this is in writing. Imagine you are in a boat. And you are rowing. But you are rowing upstream against the flow of the river. You row, you row, you row. Your muscles are tired. You say, now, let me rest a little bit. Rest on my oars a little bit. It's more comfortable. What happens? The flow of the river takes me back to where I was. This is not my example. It's not my analogy. It is Shoghi Effendi. It is very similar to the analogy given by Abdu'l-Bahá. This is how important it is to be continuously aware of where we are, what we are doing, what is our intention, is it pure, is it impure, can I purify the motives of my conduct, can I do it actively every day? This is spiritual growth. Without it, spiritual growth is impossible.